This is A to Z with Mark Zinno, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, and it starts now.
Good afternoon. Welcome to A to Z here on Locked On Sports Atlanta, where today I tell you, you better get out early. Welcome in here on this Tuesday afternoon. So much to get to. Thank you so much for making A to Z and Locked On Sports Atlanta part of your daily regimen. Give us a follow at Locked On ATL as well on Twitter. I'm at Mark Zinno, MarkZinno. Appreciate you guys joining us. Lauren Jabara will join us from Miami as the Hawks take on the Heat tonight. We'll get to that coming up here in a little bit. Also, an interesting draft strategy out there by somebody who believes the Falcons shouldn't take a quarterback, but yet the strategy says otherwise. We'll get to that also on today's show, but we do start with the Atlanta Hawks in front of them, who have a monumental task here in Game 2 in Miami against the Heat. And I say it's monumental, and on the heels of Game 1, as I've repeatedly said, I think the Hawks are in trouble. It feels like they're in trouble. But before I confirm that suspicion, I want to see how the first quarter goes tonight, because I think it's so important. I think it's so important for the Hawks to start fast tonight. Like, they need to actually have a lead in the first quarter. They need to keep Miami chasing. Their offense needs to be able to get out and play with some pace and make shots early, because I don't know how much momentum they're going to be able to create if they find themselves in a 26-12 hole like they did the first time around in Game 1. And while I'm not necessarily writing the Hawks off completely, I think there is a certain amount of underselling of Miami that not only has the national media done, but in general, I think all season long, there haven't been all that many solid believers in Miami as far as the quality of the team that they are. Talked about their depth yesterday. Talked about how good they are on defense, how athletic they are. I mean, all of these things were on full display in Game 1, and I'm not sure, because I haven't seen it yet against this Miami team who had a better showing in the regular season against the Hawks than many other teams did, and I haven't seen the Hawks be able to counterpunch yet against Miami, and that to me is problematic. It's problematic because the Hawks are on the road. It's problematic because their defense is lacking. It's problematic because their offense struggles against this Miami defense. I hate to sound all doom and gloom. I really do. And I am not down on this Hawks team. Full disclosure, again, I'm backing them tonight getting the points, because I do think they'll be able to keep it closer. I do think that the non-travel and the rest and everything will give them a chance to be a little bit rejuvenated. I certainly think that you're not going to hold Trae Young to 8 points 2 games in a row. Like, that's not going to happen. Trae Young will be in the 20s today. I'm just not sure how much in the 20s he'll be. But if he doesn't score, 8, 10, 12 points in the first half of this game, then I feels like Miami might have the answer to slowing him down. And I've listened to sports radio in this town all across the board here, and I hear people talk about the Hawks, and I hear people talk about Trae, and he's very disrespected, and he does not get the recognition he should get to the level he should get it for the player that he is. I mean, again, the guy's not going to get an MVP vote. He led the league in points and in assists this year. I don't know what else to tell you. Second player in NBA history ever do that. So I think he is not as respected or not as valued as he is. But when I take this series in a vacuum and I look at the Heat and I match them up against the Hawks, I don't know that it works out well. And that's just being objective about this whole thing. I'd love for the Hawks to go on another deep playoff run and be able to shock the world for 2 years in a row. But this Miami team is just a different level of defense. And outside of Boston, it may be the best defense in the league. And that is not something that the Hawks have adjusted well to. The Hawks do great and I'm talking this year. The Hawks do great this year against mediocre and bad defenses. They take their lunch money. They beat the crap out of them. Go see the Charlotte game. That's what it is. They take advantage of average defenses like Cleveland. And I know statistically Cleveland wasn't an average defense, but they don't play to the physicality and the level, and they don't have the depth that Miami does. So I think it's a little bit of a different level. And Cleveland's numbers this year, some of that was a product of them being very good early on and fading in the second half. I mean, really, Cleveland's defense since like late February has been bad. And the Hawks were able to take advantage of that in the final play-in game. But I just don't know that I see a whole lot from the Hawks against Miami. I mean, Trae's got to get going early. Who knows what you're going to get from John Collins? And there's got to be two more secondary scorers, whether it's Gallinari, whether it's Bogdanovich, whoever it may be, whether it's DeAndre Hunter, somebody else has got to contribute early. It can't just be all Trae. It really can't, because if nobody else is contributing, Miami's defense doesn't have to do any other work. All they got to do is focus on one person, Trae. And that's a big task. And Trae can still go off and get 28 in this game, and the Hawks still lose by a considerable amount. If nobody else is chipping in, the Hawks need more scoring from other people. And maybe it'll be John Collins, but it didn't look like that from what he showed us in game one, at least in the first half. Like, if you're just taking the first half sample set, because we know that the fourth quarter didn't count. We know that they didn't play a full game. We know that once the game was out of control, the Hawks really stopped trying. And that's all fine and good. But in the first half, if you just want to extrapolate that again, if the first half in game two duplicates the first half in game one, I'm not going to be impressed by anybody, because this defense just matches up too well with them. I think the Hawks can score. I think Trae's going to score. But they need other people to complement Trae. It's the only way that they have a shot to win a game here in Miami and steal one. If they can steal one and they go home with a split, you got to feel really good. You got to feel really, really good. I wouldn't say all is lost if they go down 0-2, but, it's like Brad Rowland from Locked On Hawks told us yesterday. Winning 4 out of the next 6 games already is a tall order, right? Like, it just – winning 4 out of the last 5, yikes. That would take something very, very special. And while this isn't a knock on the team, this team isn't special, not as it's currently constructed, and especially not defensively. Then I think you're starting to see in the first round of the NBA playoffs, and you're seeing it across the board, teams that are playing well on both ends of the floor are the ones that are really dominating. Go look at Philadelphia, which may be the most surprising first 2 games of the series that I saw. I was completely not ready to see Philadelphia be that good defensively in the playoffs against a Toronto team that matches Philadelphia from an athletic standpoint. Again, I know Toronto's got some injuries and everything, but Philadelphia, to me, in the first 2 games has been incredibly impressive. And, oh, by the way, if the Hawks do get past the Miami Heat, that's who they're playing next. So let's keep our fingers crossed tonight, folks. Honestly, that's the best thing we can do at this point in time. Let's keep our fingers crossed. If the Hawks get to an early start, I'll feel really good about the way this thing goes. I'm backing the Hawks getting the 7.5, or maybe it's even 8 now. I'm not even sure. I haven't checked this morning yet, but that's where I am as far as a betting standpoint is concerned, because I certainly believe the Hawks will keep this thing close. Whether they can win it, probably a different story, but they've got to get an early lead. I have a hard time believing Miami's going to build an 8-point lead and the defense is all of a sudden going to collapse, right? Like, they're going to need – Miami's going to have to go through a very cold shooting stretch, and the Hawks are going to have to be able to score at the rate that you can score against Miami's defense to be able to get back into it. And I don't know that prolonged shooting stretches or prolonged shooting droughts for Miami are the thing, because they're too well coached. Eric Spoelstra knows how to get his way out of that. But let's keep our fingers crossed for how things start in game 2 tonight. All right, coming up next, we will get to Lauren Jabara of Bally Sports. She is down in Miami. We'll get a preview of tonight's game. Also, before the end of the show, we'll get back to the Falcons. And Petty Freddie last night hit a home run against the Braves. All that coming up before the end of the show right here on Locked On Sports Atlanta. This is A to Z. It is free on YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast, make sure you search Locked On Sports Atlanta. We'll be right back.